You would soon hear a beautiful dialogue with a young devotee who asked the question which all of us have asked from time and time again whenever we have tried to practice the inquiry, who am I? Or practice any of the teachings given to us by the sage of the sages, Sri Ramana Maharshi, and before him by Shankaracharya and the Upanishads and the entire exegete of the Advaita Vedantic knowledge. But this young devotee paraphrased it very succinctly by saying that while I know that I've been born before in various forms as creatures, sentient and insentient, and so my mind has been working and has been attached with me, with my existences, previous existences, from times immemorial. How do I disengage my own being with this mind? And it was an impromptu dialogue that we had. And the only thing that one feels after listening to it was the crucial missing point that Ramana pointed out in Updesaram, in the verse where he says, if you inquire into the nature of your mind, you shall find out that mind is nothing but a bundle of thoughts. Mind is made up of thoughts or of thought forms, and mind does not exist as an entity. Mind does not exist. Mind is only made up of thoughts. Thoughts is my mind. My mind is my ego. So Bhagavan very succinctly told us in this verse, which is verse number 17, for those of you who may know about Updesaram or may be interested in finding out which verse am I referring to, then that verse is Manasam takim margane krite, naiva manasam marga arjavat. If you inquire into the nature of your mind, you shall find out that it is nothing but thoughts and thought forms. Mind does not exist. So that was the only missing link or point that this devotee felt should be added. So here is that humble addition to this lovely impromptu dialogue with a young devotee. So without further comment, here comes that dialogue following now. Thank you. Jai Arunachal.
We have evolved from being a rock, a tree, a plant, a bird, and all that, and we become human beings. So we do have that element of discretionary power, right? Power to discern between this and that. So to exercise all the discretionary abilities, mind comes into play. So how then do we like isolate the component of mind from our being and not associate with it at all?
Excellent. Yeah, excellent. You've been a devotee of Bhagwan in previous births also, I can tell.
Oh, that's beautiful.
Because this
That's
kind of
blessing.
question normally people at your age don't ask. So, excellent question. The intellect I have, so how can I drop my mind if I have to look at how I use the intellect to know that I'm not the mind? Yes, the thief has to be employed to catch the thief. Same thing is about meditation. We employ the mind to become what? To become thoughtless. Similarly, I'm the only species who has the intellect. The other species don't have the intellect. Therefore, they say that to be born as a human being is a boon because you can be realized. But it comes with the tricky situation that since you have the intellect, you would also be drawn into other things unless you eliminate the other things. That's the intellect. So the intellect gives me the reasoning power. The intellect gives me the ability to distinguish. The intellect gives me the ability to know right from wrong.
Yes.
So the intellect only can develop viveka. Discrimination is viveka in Sanskrit. So only when I develop my discrimination, which can only be developed if I employ my intellect, then I can know that I am not this limited body. So the intellect has to be used, which is a component of the mind. Intellect is a sharpness of the mind, is where the rationality begins. where the duality goes to the higher level, is intellect. So, intellect is not at all good for spiritual unfolding, but intellect has to be employed initially to get to that point that this is not reality, that I think this to be the reality. No, it is not. That discrimination the intellect gives me.
Oh.
So that's why the mind has to be employed to know that I'm not the mind, to know that I'm not just Harina. I'm not my education, I'm not my qualification, I'm not my money, I'm not my body, I'm not my parents' child, I'm not my sister's sister, I'm not my brother's sister, I'm not my aunt's niece, I'm not a student, I'm not an employee, I am not a good person or a bad person, I am. So the way to use the intellect should be, what is it that Helena is doing? If Bandhu were to ask Helena, Helena, what is Helena doing to be alive right now?
Yes, yes, we did.
I did ask this question at that time. What are you doing to be alive right now?
I'm inhaling, exhaling.
So are you exhaling?
No.
Do you know how to do that? It is a given manifestation. You don't control it. Otherwise, you can say, I will not be ever dead because I know how to breathe. You could challenge anybody and say, I will never be dead, I'm eternal because I know how to breathe. But when you come to that stage, you would say, no, I can't control that. When the breath is supposed to stop, it'll stop and I'll be declared dead.
So like how the physiologists will say there are some involuntary functions in the body, like breathing, like heartbeat.
Yeah, digestion. All
Yeah.
parasympathetic activity and sympathetic activity is all non-volitional. I don't do anything and it is just continuing beyond my capability, but I begin to own it because of my ego. Just now, as you said, I'm breathing and I'm exhaling. That's my ego telling me. That's the ego telling you, you are breathing, you are exhaling, you are healthy, you know how to do it, you know how your lungs work, you know how your mind works, you know how the blood is pumped, you know all the physiological functions because of the intellect, and the mind tells you that's who you are. I'm not. The same breath that runs to Harina's body is the same breath that runs in that tree on the outside of my house.
Oh.
In the bear, in the bird, in the insect. All of us, when the breath stops, are declared dead and our body is thrown away. Whether it be a lion, whether it be Helena, whether it be a man in Timbuktu. And that is a viveka. That's the discrimination that the intellect can give me, but the intellect should be employed only up to that point. And the day I have that clarity, I begin to see the world around me as fake. And it is still around me because my prarabdha is to live in this world. I would still go through all the motions of studying and employment and marriage and unfortunately even children, and keep on increasing my cobweb. And I can stop it. Intellect has also been given to me to exercise a diversion from it and say, I do not want to get married, or I'm married but I don't want to have children, and I can try. And still the prarabdha will rule. What is destined to happen will happen, but at least I can begin to direct my mind towards things.
Oh.
And it takes a lifetime, but for some luckier ones, true devotees, it happens faster, within a few years. One begins to have this clarity, then one begins to remember this clarity again and again, then one begins to have more rapid recollection of this kind of revelation, this kind of clarity, understanding, which is Advaitic, and then slowly and slowly it becomes part of your life. And that's for your contemplation. You don't sit in meditation in any particular pose or any particular time of the day. It just continuing throughout the day because you say, yeah, I'm watching myself act, working and all that, but it's only an act. It's only something that I'm destined to go through. All that is prarabdha. But now, since you seem to have the clarity that I'm very happy to see, so even when you have a new relationship, or you talk to your father, you talk to your uncle, or you talk to your boss, or you talk to the person, the Uber driver, or you are going by train and somebody's sitting next to you, when you really become a true devotee, you will always see yourself talking, and you will see yourself away from being this Halina, the body that speaks, the mind that interacts.
Oh,
And then you begin to see as the entity, as if you're watching the movie, that Halina is talking, Halina is cooking, Halina is now telling this person, or not liking what the boss said, or doesn't like what the husband said or the wife said. And we begin to see ourselves as a person interacting in all these activities that are way beyond my control. There's nothing actually for the one who is an advanced sadhaka, or the one who is matured enough to understand the non-dualistic aspect, begins to then say to himself that there's nothing actually that I know. There's nothing, not even an iota of a thing is done by me. It is all programmed. I'm just leading a life.
really, Bandhuji? Everything is pre-programmed, you think?
Sorry, everything is what?
Everything is pre-programmed, you think?
Everything, absolutely. Devraj Mudaliar, you know that name of the devotee,
Yes.
okay, who wrote Day by Day with Bhagwan. There's an incident in that. He was fanning Bhagwan. This is just to illustrate the point how Bhagwan, he was fanning Bhagwan in a very hot afternoon in Tiruvannamalai, and he was very bold, as you may know. He was very bold in challenging Bhagwan, so much so that people used to talk to each other in hushed tone. How dare he talk to Bhagwan like this? But he was very bold. So he would ask Bhagwan all kinds of questions. So he's fanning Bhagwan one afternoon. It's very hot. And then he puts the fan down and asks Bhagwan, Bhagwan, you think everything is, you tell us that everything is predetermined, predestined, everything. Everything. So even my fanning you on this hot afternoon was predetermined. And Bhagwan was very jovial. So Bhagwan said, absolutely, yes. Even your putting down the fan and stopping from fanning me anymore also was destined. Everything is destined, beta. Alina, Harina, everything is destined.
Then why do we need this component of intellect at all, the mind at
We
all?
don't need it. That's why we should drop it. That's why being intellectual, the more educated you are, more intellectual you become. And I've been everything that I see in others that I like and I don't like is already in my intellect. That's why I know it. Bludgeon somebody to death with a blunt object, and you immediately despise that act, you despise that man. But you have never bludgeoned anybody in life. How did we understand what bludgeoning means? How a blunt person can be killed with something? How do we despise that? How do we know that was heinous crime? Because we have at some patala, as it's in Sanskrit, at some level, at some thin layer, there was a latent impression of that act in my mind.
Oh, so which means in the previous birth, like either I was murdered by someone or I murdered someone, and that vasana is still with me?
Yes, that's why I
Oh,
know. That's why whenever somebody describes something very bad, I immediately know what that means. Nobody comes to. Here's a very good example of our vasanas. And you're too young, so I'm a little shy in giving this example to you. I wish there were other people, then I could have. So I'm not going to give you that example because it'll be
that's
you're
all
too.
right, Bandhuji. Don't treat us like a kid. You do not know
Okay,
like how many janmas I
I
had.
do not, but it's a very sensitive matter. Okay, I'll give it to you. I think you're mature enough. Does anybody teach you certain personal things, your personal gratifications, masturbation? Nobody teaches you that. When you get married, Nobody, your mother or father doesn't tell you what cohabitation or copulation or intercourse means. You naturally know it. Now, move your mind from there and look at the monkeys somewhere, and you see them mating, or you see some other creature mating, or you see birds mating, and all instinct. Same instinct is in us. We, all species, multiply because of copulation, because of intercourse, because of physical engagement. And all of us have it ingrained in our memory to know how to do it. Here's a blatant but a absolute example to quickly understand that my mind already has mental impression. Nobody tells me.
Oh.
Even a person who is or somebody who is mentally challenged. You see what I'm talking about? Do you picture them? And they still have the desire for physical gratification. Like where does that come from? Even a person who's mentally imbalanced.
That is a very physiological need, right? Like physiological need, like being hungry or wanting to excrete or like wanting to sleep. These are very physiological instincts a human being has. And so is this, like the physical gratification is also, it's a part of a physiology, right?
Yes, it is. But it is a little more mental because it gratifies me. So there's a little more attachment there, deeper attachment there. And just could be the same with food. Somebody, and you would,
even that is a mental thing, right? Yeah.
yes.
Sleeping and other activities do not come under.
Yes,
Right.
even taste. That's why we all have, if we really go deeper into this kind of inquiry, and I think you would get to that point if you have already not got to that point, you will know the fulcrum of your nature. What do I mean by that? You would know your core nature. What drives your instinct? Instinctively, we are different from how we enunciate things. Instinct is different from my action. So, for example, let's say I have the instinct of stealing things, and we can easily imagine this. There are people who are called kleptomaniacs, right? They have to get that.
Right. Got it.
So where does that come from? That comes from the previous vasanas of me liking something. Now, go with that example, go to the next level of attachment. Somebody just likes one particular thing and always steals it.
One particular thing means, like, for example, they always keep stealing mobile phones, for example.
Right. So that instinct is the deepest vasana I have. And all of us have instincts.
I never thought of it this way.
And therefore, now the next step of that is your guru, your Ishtadevata. What drives you is what your guru sees in your action. Guru does not see or give you credit for your action. He gives you credit or discredit for your intent behind your action.
Wow. It's so refined a thought. It's so refined a thought. That's right, because from a thought comes the actions, words, everything.
Correct.
So having the goodness is with the thoughts. That has to be like really refined. I get it. Oh.